The Raising of Lazarus, a story for rest and reflection based on the Gospel of John, chapter 11. There is a village called Bethany that sits quietly on the eastern slope of the Mount of Olives, just a short walk from Jerusalem. It is the kind of place that time moves through slowly, where the bread is always warm, the evenings are long and golden, and neighbors know each other's names and sorrows both. In this village lived a man named Lazarus, and with him his two sisters Mary and Martha. They were a household full of life and love, and among all the people who had ever crossed their threshold, there was no one more welcome than Jesus. He had eaten at their table. He had rested in their home. He was, in every real sense of the word, their friend. Then one morning, without warning, Lazarus fell ill. His sisters watched over him with all the careful love they had, taking turns at his bedside through the long hours, speaking softly, willing him better with every tender word. But the illness did not yield. And so they did the only thing left to do. They sent a messenger down the road with a simple, trusting message. "Lord, the one you love is sick." Nothing more. Just the truth laid gently in his hands. When the message reached Jesus, who was across the Jordan River teaching among the people, he received it and was still. He said that this sickness would not end in death, but was meant for God's glory. And then, to everyone's surprise, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. 2 whole days while Lazarus lay in Bethany and his sisters waited, and the hope in the house grew thin and quiet. Whatever the disciples made of this delay, they did not fully understand it. And yet Jesus moved with the steady, unhurried certainty of someone who could see things others could not. After those 2 days he turned to his disciples and said, "Let us go back." As they walked, he told them gently, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going to wake him up." It was only when Jesus said it plainly that they understood. Lazarus was not sleeping. Lazarus was dead. And still they walked because he walked, and there was something in the way he walked that made a person want to follow. By the time they arrived at Bethany, 4 days had already passed. The house was full of mourners who had come from Jerusalem, neighbors and friends sitting close together, speaking in low voices. Martha heard that Jesus was coming and rose to meet him on the road. When she saw him, the words came quickly, honest and raw and full all at once. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." There was sorrow in those words, but also something more. A faith that had not fully let go even in the middle of everything. She added quietly, "But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus looked at her with great steadiness and spoke words that have carried people through the hardest nights for 2,000 years. "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die." Then he asked simply, "Do you believe this?" And Martha, faithful, honest, grieving Martha, answered, "Yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." Then she turned, went back to the house, found her sister, and whispered close, "The teacher is here and he is asking for you." Mary rose the moment she heard those words. Those sitting with her followed, thinking she was going to the tomb to weep. Instead she found Jesus outside the village and fell at his feet, and spoke the very same words her sister had. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping and saw all the others weeping with her, something moved in him deeply, a troubled stirring, a grief that shook him from the inside. He asked where Lazarus had been laid, and they said, "Come and see." And the shortest verse in all of the Bible holds what happened next. Jesus wept. Those standing around looked at his tears and said softly to one another, "See how he loved him." In that moment, in those 2 small words, we are reminded that the one who holds all things together is also the one who weeps at tombs beside the people he loves. They came to the cave where Lazarus had been laid, sealed with a great stone rolled across the entrance. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, ever grounded, gently reminded him that 4 days had already passed. Jesus answered her gently in return, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" And so the stone was taken away. The afternoon light fell into the opening where there had only been darkness. The The crowd stood still around the entrance, the dust of the road on their sandals, the world holding its breath. Jesus looked up and prayed, not for himself, he said, but for the sake of those standing nearby so that they might believe. His prayer was short and sure, the prayer of someone already certain of the answer. Then he called out in a voice that filled the hillside and the silence of the cave and perhaps something deeper still. Lazarus, come out. There was a moment. There is always a moment. And then Lazarus came out. Still wrapped in his burial cloths, his hands and feet bound in linen, the cloth still folded around his face. He came walking out of the tomb and into the light. Jesus looked at those nearby and said with quiet warmth, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go. Let him go. Let him back into his life. Back to the dinner table and the evening air and the voices of his sisters calling his name without fear." Many who witnessed what happened that day believed. The story spread quickly, the way stories do when words can barely hold the weight of what actually occurred. And in the house in Bethany that evening, one can only imagine the stillness, the kind that settles after something enormous when gratitude is too full for noise. Perhaps Martha moved about the kitchen doing what she always did, feeding people as a form of love. Perhaps Mary sat very close to her brother and did not want to be anywhere else. Perhaps Lazarus simply looked around the familiar room, at the lamplight on the stone walls, at the faces of the people he loved, and breathed slowly and let himself be here.